The Domino switchgear has arrived and it looks quite nice, certainly an improvement on the OEM parts. However, although the two units are functionally similar to the Guzzi parts, they are not direct replacements. The right hand unit has a latch-in push button for the engine run kill switch, and there is a push button for the starter. I opted for the model without the Molex connector, which on the bike has 4 pins, but there are 6 wires. 2 of which are effectively a common feed for the kill switch, and one is for a normally closed contact on the same switch, which is not required on the Guzzi, so that brings me back to 4 wires. Before I can connect the switchgear, the kill switch circuit does need a closer look. It's fed directly from the positive side of the battery. First it passes through the ignition switch on the console, and then the kill switch on the right handlebar unit. From here it feeds directly to the coils, each of which is earthed via the points. A check with my multimeter shows the coils pulling over 4 amps, but the Domino switch is only rated at 3 amps. I suspect that it wouldn't really be an issue to run the coils directly via this switch, as it's certainly better than the Guzzi original which carried that current, but ignoring component specifications is for the brave or foolhardy. Instead, I'm going to modify the circuit so that the kill switch activates a relay which will feed the power to the coils. One other change whilst I'm making this modification: on the original wiring this circuit is not fused at any point, which means that should a short circuit ever occur, it's likely to result in a fire, so I'll fit an inline fuse to the feed off the battery. For the relay I use one of these Bosch 4-pin units and I locate it under the tank. By locating it here, I am able to reuse the existing feed to the coils and splice into the 12-volt feed to the ignition switch. I do run a new wire from the switchgear connector to activate the coil, and I ground it locally here along with all the others. I will secure the relay properly when I recover and tidy up the loom. To test it, I temporarily connect the new switchgear's wiring loom to the old Molex connector, and I'll come back later to tidy this up. The left-hand switchgear unit is a lot more complex, and although functionally the same with the equivalent switches to the Guzzi unit, it is electrically quite different and will require modification. There is a single positive feed into the unit, and this feeds into 3 different circuits. First is the side lights, where the circuit passes through one pole of the double pole triple throw light switch. When in positions 2 and 3, power is fed out to the brake lights, front pilot light and console indicator light. The second circuit is for the headlight, and it feeds through the other pole of the light switch. The headlight is switched on only in position 3. This then feeds into the main beam dip switch, which feeds out to the relevant side of the headlight bulb, and the console indicator light for main beam. The third circuit is for the horn and headlight flash push buttons, which when pressed feed out to those circuits. There is also the circuit for the indicator switch. This replicates the Guzzi part, so other than different colour wiring is not a concern. On the original bike there are a couple of differences. Firstly, the side light and headlight circuits are fed off different fuse supplies, and secondly, the horn and headlight flasher are grounded via the push buttons, not fed 12 volts. Having given this some thought, I decided to modify the switchgear unit to bring it in line with the OEM part, rather than start making even more changes to the loom. Although I pulled the switchgear unit apart, I realised that I can make the necessary changes in the subloom that feeds into it by breaking into the existing splice on the green wire and adding 2 new wires, one for the side light circuit and one for the horn flash push buttons. These wires are currently black and green, but I will add some coloured heat shrink to differentiate between the existing black and green. I should also note that the new unit came complete with a 9-pin Molex connector, but there are now 11 wires, and of course the original connector on the main loom is 12-pin. As I did for the right side, I used the old Molex connector, this time using some chocolate block to test everything works as it should. There is a mounting pin on the inside of the left-hand unit to stop it from rotating around the handlebar when in use. This means that I need to drill a corresponding hole in the bar for it to locate into. To drill the hole, I remove the handlebar, clamp it into my machine vise on my mill, and after carefully checking all the dimensions with respect to the new Biltwell grip, drill through at 5.1mm. Because I'm using a Biltwell grip and not the original switchgear unit, there is now a space between the latter and the throttle lever clamp. I'll turn up a bush to fill this in, but that'll be a job for later. All that remains is to tidy up the wiring at the Molex connectors, and I'm good to go. With 11 wires to connect on the left side, I did capture the mapping between the colours of the new switchgear wires and the loom wires, noted here on my bench. Using the sub-looms from the old switchgear for guidance, I cut the new ones to length, fit new crimps to the wires and plug them into the loom. It's still an untidy mess here behind the headlamp, but that's the original Guzzi mess, one that I'm not going to undo. There we go, job finished. I am very pleased with the result, a definite improvement on the original parts. I suspect I'll have the same issue on the right side as the left, and will need to turn a bush to fit between the switchgear and the brake lever bracket.